Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of the Let's Talk About It series for this month. Yeah, today I said we're going to be sharing about my personal experience. So we're going to delve right into it. Let's talk about it. So I actually had quite a difficult childhood in that I grew up in an environment that was very rigid and very tight and very controlling, and where unconditional love was not a thing. The love was very conditional. And so that was quite tough for me, especially as an only child. You know, all the burden was on me. I didn't have a sibling to share that with, So it was very tough, and it was very isolating. And I also grew up in a very conservative background and a very religious background where the worship of God, a lot of it was religion, a lot of it was striving, a lot of it was, the master-servant relationship as opposed to the love relationship, that I've talked about throughout this series. It was very oppressive, it was very restrictive, and it was very legalistic, very legalistic. And so, that messed me up, even though I came to know God at a very young age. And I thank God that my heart was genuine and sincere. So I grew in my faith. I grew spiritually. However, other aspects of my life, I really struggled because of, like I said, the environment I grew up in. So my emotional life, my mental life, my social life, all of that really struggled. And so I ended up having a lot of fears. And so I had fears of social interaction and fears of people, actually, in general. And so that meant that I struggled in social situations, struggled with even having like one-to-one conversations, much less like being in a group of people, right? That was really scary. And so my journey of freedom began when I started to come in contact with and be exposed to other environments, other content, other people that were different from this restrictive, controlling, cult-like environment that I found myself in. And then I began to realize that, the world was much broader than the narrow environment that I was surrounded by. In that environment, the orphan heart reigns, literally, because there's so much hurt. And it's like hurt people then hurt other people, and then the hurt is like multiplied, and then it's just an environment full of hurt. Very, very strong hurts as well. I'm smiling, but it really was horrible. It wasn't pleasant. So the greatest turning point for me came when I left the toxic church environment that I was in. That's where sort of the greatest journey of freedom came, because there's only so much freedom that you can have when you're still in a toxic environment. But when you are able to have the courage to step out of that environment, half of the job is already done in terms of your journey to freedom and your journey to healing. Yeah, and so God led I and my husband to a church that was very nurturing, and a church where we had the opportunity to breathe and, get the chance to experience a loving environment. And that was very powerful for us and very healing. It gave us the space to heal. But I tell you, when you have been in an environment that has for so long tried to enslave you, just stepping out of it doesn't automatically mean your freedom. No. And the reason for that is because you've been battered from the whole experience. You've been battered, you've been wounded, you've been crushed, you've been broken, You've gone through so much hurt and pain that actually, it is actually just the beginning of your journey. So the next thing is healing. And that's why I mentioned in my previous videos that before you can help other people, you first need to heal. Because if you haven't healed, then what you think is love is actually not going to be love. You're just going to be giving off toxicity without even you realizing it. And that's what I had to do. And I'm still on that journey, but I am not where I used to be. I am not where I used to be. And yeah, it's amazing. you know, the restoration, the healing, the growth, you know, that happens when you are in a place of freedom. It's been a very empowering journey, and I'm grateful to God for it, because I know that that's part of my story. Because I know there are many people who have my type of story, who have my type of background, who have gone through something similar to what I've gone through. And if my journey or story can help to bring about healing in another individual, then it was worth it. It was absolutely worth it. One of the biggest things I've come to realize about the world that we live in is that most people just don't actually believe in unconditional love. And I can understand why, because most of the love that people think they're showing is not unconditional love. It's not agape love. It's not God's love. There are so many strings attached. Strings of indebtedness, strings of now you have to do everything that I say because I have shown you love. So now I've got you under my little thumb and I basically tell you what to do and I basically run your life, right? There's so many things that are all conditional based on, so long as you keep doing what I say, then I'll keep loving you. The minute we disagree, that's the end of that. That's the end of the love. That's the end of the relationship. That is conditional love. The definition of conditional love. And it's terrible. It's terrible. Our world is full of it. But ladies and gentlemen, we're not always going to get the unconditional love thing right. We are human beings, and so we have our limitations. But so long as that is where our heart is, that is where we want to get to, and we've gone through the healing, then we've got the Holy Spirit to help us to do that. But also because we are not going to be able to reach and touch everyone, because we are not God. It's only God that died for us all. We are just human beings that are also receiving the love of God. And so we've also got to remember that. And so you don't need to put pressure on yourself to try to help everybody, to try to reach everyone, because you can't. You're a human being. Only God can do that. So there are people that I will be able to resonate with, and there are people I won't be able to resonate with. There are people that you can reach that I can't reach. And that's perfectly fine. You see, that's why we all need to be in that place where we can display God's love, because not one person or not one group of people have all it takes to be able to shine that light of God's love to the world. God needs each and every single one of us. He needs me, and he needs you, and he needs everybody else. There will be certain people who can only resonate with you, with your story, with what you've been through. And you cannot deny them of that healing and restoration and blessing by not shining your light. We all have a part to play in loving others. Also, loving people does not always mean you have to be close to them. Loving everyone or having a loving heart towards everyone doesn't mean you have to be close to everybody. No, it doesn't. First of all, it's impossible. Right? It's just not practical. And second of all, like I said, there may still be people displaying the orphan heart, being very, very toxic, and God has still commanded you to love them. But you still need to keep your distance to protect yourself. And so that's okay. So loving people is not about how close you are to them. It's about the state of your heart towards them. Do you accept them in your heart? Or is there rejection? Is there hatred? And we see that with Jesus as well. Jesus could relate with anybody and everybody, but he didn't hang around with everyone. No, he didn't. He had his 12 people that he rode with. Those were the people who were the closest to him, because Jesus also worked in purpose and worked with purpose. And so he loved everybody, but he only related with the people that he was meant to relate with, the people that the Father had led him to. And it also doesn't mean that you're going to get along with everybody. Like you personally are going to get along with everyone. No. Jesus did not get along with the Pharisees. Why? Because they were hypocrites. That's the reality as well. You're not going to get along with somebody who is not going in the same direction as you. You're not going to get along with somebody who hates what you love and love what you hate, especially as a Christian. God has called us to a certain walk. God has called us to please Him, to live for Him. And there are many people who that is not their interest or desire. Now you cannot be saying, oh, I'm trying to love them, and you are then compromising who you are because of that. No, 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 no. So God has not called us to get along with everybody. No. God has called us to love everyone, but God has called us to still be true and authentic and honest with who you are as a person and who God has made you to be. So I'm sure from going through the videos, you will realize that loving other people is not a straightforward, simple formula. Do this, do this, do this, and you will be displaying agape love. No, it doesn't work like that. But I want to give you like a sort of a few principles. So the first thing, your first allegiance is to God. See, nobody on this earth deserves your attention more than the Most High God. You know why? Because no other human being did what God did for you. God created you. Nobody else created you. God gave His Son, His precious, His only begotten Son for you, the Father. Nobody else did that. The Son died. God died for you and shed His blood and went through suffering and pain and rejection and hatred and anguish for you. No other human being did that. And so no other human being deserves your attention like God does. God is first on your loving list. He should be your first love as a Christian, right? I'm speaking to Christians right now. And you know, that also applies to the most intimate relationships. So the relationship between a husband and a wife. Yes, my husband does not come before God. Now, I love my husband. I adore my husband. I reverence my husband, right? Like Sarah reverenced hers, Abraham. But he does not take the place of God. No way. Heck the no way. Because he did not do what God did for me. Okay? And it's the same thing with him. I don't take the place of God. I've got to step out of the way and make sure that he is pouring out his first and full devotion to the Most High God. And you know, we honor our walk with God in each other. And we honor each other's relationship with God above our relationship with each other. And you know what that makes for? That makes for a very satisfying, a very beautiful, a very fulfilling, a very Christ-centered, enriching relationship and union. And that's God's way. That is God's way. And you see, when you've got that as your foundation, then you can realize that others are also people that God died for. And then you then flow from that place of seeing them through God's eyes and having the opportunity to demonstrate God's love to them because of the love that God has for them. We've all been through stuff. Sometimes you think you're the only one who's gone through trauma and everyone else is just nasty. No, not at all. Everybody has been through their stuff. Everybody. And so actually, when you see certain behaviors and certain display that you think this is strange, you think this is not pleasant, it's because of their own trauma that is being displayed. So when you realize that as well, you're able to give people more grace. You're able to have more understanding because you realize that you yourself are in need of grace. You yourself sometimes mess up, sometimes get it wrong. And so you want to be able to extend that grace to other people as well. So that's it, guys. That's it. That's it with our series. So thank you for joining me through this series. And I hope it's been a blessing to you. I know it's definitely been a blessing to me sharing it. And it's been such a great way to wrap up the year as well. God bless you. And until next time, peace out.